Hello everyone, welcome back to YK Reviews. Now with Indiana Jones just coming out here, it's time to rank all the movies from Raiders of the Lost Ark to the original trilogy, all the way to Crystal Skull and the most recent one, Dial of Destiny. And we're going to do this tier list style. So let's get straight into it here. Now how we're gonna do this. So as you can see here on the screen, we've got basically all 5 movies. I know there was like a series with Indiana Jones, but I have not seen it, and so it's just going to be based on movies. Now bear in mind too, this is just my opinion. Some people are going to be thinking
you chose poorly.
And while others are agreeing with me, are going to be also thinking
You have chosen wisely.
So let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts, your opinions, how you would rank the Indiana Jones movies from number 1 to number 5. Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I do tier ranking videos, weekly entertainment news videos, along with video essays, in-depth spoiler reviews for movies and shows and that kind of stuff. There's going to be a tier ranking for the Mission Impossible very soon once I get to see the latest Mission Impossible movie. So subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on that. And these ones, I'm going to put timestamps in the description down below. So if there's any movie in particular you want to hear my thoughts about or where you want to rank them, I'm going to put timestamps in the description down below so that way you can skip around here. Again, no judgment if you want to skip around. So timestamps will be in the description down below. And I'm going to start off with like the latest movie, working my way backwards, just because you'll see with the ranking here, because we're going to start off with Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny, the latest movie, one with Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones at 80 years old. Now, since I haven't posted my review for this movie just yet, this is sort of going to be like a mini review, because I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of this movie. The last 2 movies, basically when it comes to Dial of Destiny and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they're sort of on the same level to me. But with Dial of Destiny, since this was like the grand finale closing out the Indiana Jones chapter, I was kind of left disappointed with everything here. Now this is going to be all spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, check out the movie first before you check out this video and this tier ranking here. But just overall, when it comes to this here, like the action sequence, like I get it, Harrison Ford, 80 years old, can't do the things that he used to do here, but even like the running just felt so awkward. And I enjoyed the opening sequence when it comes to back in like Germany and him playing like a younger version, like the de-aging. When it looked good, it looked really good, one of the best de-aging I've seen. But when it looked bad, like you can see the eyes just looked so dead, not a lot of emotions. Like the part where he's like on the train and he's sitting with the soldiers pretending to eat, you can really see it. So it just didn't come across like natural. It looked good because it was like nighttime, so it looked a lot better, but it just, when it looked bad, it really did look bad. But then after that, like you have him like present day at that time, which was 1969, and you just see him as like an old man. And granted, he looks great for 80 years old. Like he looks better topless than I do, I'll be completely honest. But you just see him like, this is not what I wanted to see Indiana Jones, like an old man with a bat telling his neighbors to turn the music down, being retired from like the university, drinking alone, being in class when nobody's listening to him. When you got back in the day, when you've got girls saying love you on their eyelids and stuff, and to now nobody's paying attention to him. Even he just seems like half-assed. So like I don't know why they put him as like a depressed old lonely man. And I even said this to my wife on the way to the theaters, I guarantee you he is going to have a divorce with Marion. They're not going to be together. It's true, like he's got the separation notice, and then at the end of the movie they're back together. I just don't see the point of doing that whole plot of like having him be separated only to then get together at the end. Just that, and also the Mutt character being killed off. I understand the whole behind the scenes situation with Shia LaBeouf and Steven Spielberg's, the whole situation there. I don't agree with like Shia LaBeouf's take on everything, so I understand why he wasn't brought back. But you could have at least done something better. Like you could say that he got married and had kids, have a picture of like grandkids or something like that. You didn't need to kill him off screen. I just thought it was a really bad choice. And then when it comes to like the action pieces here, the chase sequences, like I enjoyed the chase sequence in Morocco. Now I've been to Morocco many times. I used to go there every year as a kid since my mum is from Morocco. So it was nice to see the settings again. Nice to see the scenery, the people. Like I enjoyed that. And the chase sequence I thought was the better part of the movie, that whole chase sequence. But then because you've got 3 elements to it. You've got the villains, the one stealing the dial. You've got Indiana Jones along with Phoebe's character, which I'll definitely get into, and then you got her boyfriend, fiance, whatever it was there. So you've got like three parties chasing each other. I just didn't see the point of the gangster, the Moroccan people, her like fiance people being involved in that. It just looked very clunky and messy. So while I enjoyed that chase sequence, I just wasn't a huge fan of all the elements put together there. Even like the beginning part two, like, so with Phoebe Waller's character, I didn't mind her at first. Honestly, I really didn't mind her. But then as the movie progresses, you just start hating her more and more, liking her less and less. Like when she first gets introduced, when they're having a drink, you finally understand, oh, that's her goddaughter, like they're starting to work together, only to then ditch him in the library when these goons show up, and she basically is leaving him to die. I thought was a really odd choice there. And then throughout the whole movie, she's just like talking down to him, like this Indiana Jones is a person we went to go see, only to have this Helena character talk down to like the character we all love. I just didn't understand that. And just her whole personality too, she just didn't care about people dying. You had one character, Indy's friend, which I'll talk about in a second, who died on the boat. He's clearly visibly upset, and he tells her like, my friend just died, and she's like, okay, sorry. That's like, she just didn't have enough qualities to redeem herself at the end. And even like the choices she made at the end, I really was frustrated. But you have then his friend that died, Antonio Banderas, Puss in Boots basically, and I butchered the name, so I apologize. I don't understand why he was in the movie. He, at the end of the day, was just a glorified cameo. Like, he played no role in the movie whatsoever, no role in the plot. He was just there. And even when he was there, I think he spoke 2 sentences. The only thing that I got out of his cameo was, my god, Puss in Boots looks old now. Like, this guy, Puss in Boots, Zorro, like, I grew up with him. He's so old now, my god. Like, that's all I got from that cameo. I just didn't understand the point of him being there. If you were going to have any cameo in this movie, you could have had Short Round here. Like, I really wanted to see him in this movie, like, just to see him catching up with Indy, but left disappointed that he wasn't there. And then having like Puss in Boots there, I just didn't understand the point. And even that whole boat sequence there, I feel like really dragged on. Like, I was feeling the runtime of this movie, so that 2.5-hour movie, that whole boat sequence was the thing that I was really feeling the runtime for that one, especially when she's like revealing like the clues and stuff like that. It just was really, really dragging on when she's giving the whole speech. The villain of the movie, Mads, I felt like he was very bland. Like, he just wasn't like, he was written decent. I thought in the beginning when he gets knocked off the train, I thought he was going to be coming back with like a big scar, like maybe a burnt face, something, but he came away looking great. Like, not a single scratch on him in present day, like 1969, especially after the fall he took. So I was left a little bit disappointed with that. But even like his villain himself, like, he's probably the most forgettable villain in the whole franchise. Like, he just didn't stand out whatsoever. And then you've got the whole third act time travel situation. Now, I get that Indiana Jones has this like supernatural element and stuff like that, but the last 2 movies really took me out of like the movies, like their whole interdimensional aliens from the previous movie, which I'll talk about in that review. But then the whole time travel, they did it, and I enjoyed the romance and the fight sequences there, but I just wasn't a fan of that. And then you even had Indiana Jones like sort of sidelined in this. Like, you have him with a bullet wound tied up while Phoebe Waller is doing all the action sequences, which I didn't like. I get Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, 80 years old, can't do the stuff, but he could have at least like pulled the lever or whatever it was to like open the flaps to have all these German soldiers falling out of the plane. Like, he could have at least done that, but he was just there. And then having the whole time travel element too, I would have preferred a better ending for Indiana Jones, because at the end of the day, when he's there, you really get this emotional scene with him. Like, you can see him crying. He's in this time period. This is what he's been living for his whole life. So it was really nice to see him in that element, which I don't think would have been a good idea for him to stay in that time period for obvious reasons. But I would have at least wanted him to have a choice, because you've got Helena punching him, knocking him out, and then taking him back. Now, like, all of a sudden, she doesn't want him to stay. So he didn't even get that choice. So it's just like a lot of decisions. Like, I wasn't happy with the ending that they went for. I wouldn't have been happy with the ending that they would have gone for if he stayed there. I don't know, like, they could have done something different, but just overall, I wasn't happy about that. And then you have him back to, like, the present 1969 day for Marion to come back. like do the whole like cute scene from the first movie of like, this is where it doesn't hurt, this is where it doesn't hurt, that kind of thing, which I thought was cute. But just overall, it was just very sad. And even like at the end when like all the people are going out to get ice cream, and then you just see his hand getting his hat, closing it out with like that white circle there. I don't know, for like the end of the franchise, I wanted something better. I just was left really disappointed with this. I wanted more from this ending. And so like for me, like I said, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and this one is on the same level. If we're comparing both, I'm going to have to put Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny as a C minus for me. And I'll get into the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in just a minute. But yeah, when it comes to Indiana Jones: Dial of Destiny, really left disappointed. So yeah, C minus for me here. And so then we go back 15 years earlier with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I see a lot of hate for this movie. Now, I'll be completely honest. I've only seen this one time, and that was just watching all of the movies before the Dial of Destiny. So I literally finished this movie the same day I went to watch Dial of Destiny. So maybe I've got recency bias, but I just don't see the hate that it gets. I get why there is hate for this movie because of the whole silliness with like the monkey swinging, the nuclear blast with the fridge surviving with Indiana Jones inside it, the whole third act I was not a fan of, the whole interdimensional aliens UFO thingy. Like I feel like towards the third act it went from like a Tarzan movie to a Fast and Furious movie with the cars in the waterfall to then episode of the X-Files with the whole interdimensional thingy. So the movie just went completely off the rails. But I still prefer this one over Dial of Destiny only because of that jungle chase sequence and the motorbike sequence early in the movie with Mutt and Indy running around on the motorbike. I really enjoyed that one. And then the whole jungle chase sequence, I really had a fun time with it. It was more entertaining than the chase sequence in Morocco in Dial of Destiny. That's the only reason why it's going slightly higher. And also the villains are more memorable. Like Kate Blanchett's character was pretty entertaining, and she was getting more involved in the sequences, like especially the fight sequence with like the two cars and her versus Shia LaBeouf. Like that was entertaining for me. The car chase sequences, all of that. Like you had so much creativity with how like the cars were going and how each person was getting into like different cars and all that kind of stuff. So that was more entertaining for me than the Moroccan chase sequence in Dial of Destiny. But like I said, yeah, there are obvious flaws with the movie itself, and the plot and everything just didn't make any sense for me when it comes to like the Crystal Skull. Like even like Ray Winston's character, like he added a nice like subplot with him being an ally to Indy, to a double agent, to a triple agent, back to a double agent, all of that stuff. I found it a little bit entertaining, but I wish they used John Hurt more in the movie. Like he was barely used in there. And even the whole thing with Shia LaBeouf being Indy's son, I just thought was just sprung on there, and then that wasn't really explored or developed more. So I was kind of left a little bit disappointed with that. But I had more of a fun time with this movie than I did with Dial of Destiny. I get all the hate it gets, but it was more fun for me, so I don't think it's as bad. And I don't think it deserves the hate it does get. Like maybe because at the time that might have been the end of their franchise, so people were left disappointed. But at least with the ending too, you had Indy and Marion getting married, so they had that happy ending. So I liked that, and it made more sense of like them not being together because of the original trilogy and everything that happened, now to them finally reuniting. That makes sense, to them exploring the possibility and then getting together. I like that, and they get the happy ending, versus Dial of Destiny, they divorced in the beginning of the movie only to get back together like after being together from Crystal of Skull ending, if that makes sense. So that's what left me a little bit disappointed. So at least this one, they got that happy ending. So for me, Indiana Jones Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, while it doesn't touch the original trilogy, I feel like this one, again, same level as Dial of Destiny, but a little bit better because of the whole jungle chase sequence. So for me, this one's going as a C as well, but this is going as a C plus, whereas Dial of Destiny is going as a C minus. Now, next up on the list here is we've got the ending of the trilogy with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I'll be honest, I'm going to say this right now. This was my favorite and is my favorite movie of the whole franchise. So I'm just going to put this right now as the A. Normally I have A triple plus, but because there's 5 movies and most of them are going very, very similar, I'm just leaving it as an A. So when it comes to Indiana Jones on the Last Crusade, it's going as an A, my favorite movie of the whole franchise. This just was so fun and entertaining, and just the dynamic with like Indy and his father just worked so well. Having Marcus finally get involved and be part of the trip, I thought was a really nice touch, and he brought like a really nice fun element to it. The whole plane scene with them, cannot for the life of me still remember what that name of that plane is. I keep thinking it's a hot air balloon, but I know it's not a hot air balloon. I think it's a Zeppelin. Honestly, it's been bugging me for days. But when they're in that plane and when he's throwing the soldier out of the plane saying no ticket and everybody's freaking out showing their tickets, I thought was really hilarious. And just everything with the plot too. Now, these three movies, the whole supernatural element it was more believable because it was religious based. Now, the other two with aliens and time travel, you don't really see that nowadays here. Or maybe the alien aspect, but not time travel. These ones, it's all religious based. I feel like this was more of like grounded elements versus like the next two movies that came in the series. Everything when it comes to it, even like the whole third act with like Indy's father in the plane shooting their own plane and him in the tank, like him and Marcus trying to escape the tank, was just so hilarious and entertaining. And even like the villains too, like I forget the name of the character there, which the German lady there, she had like a nice element when it comes to her being as the villain. Even like the whole third act too, when she's tricking the doctor to drink in the wrong cup, to then thinking Indy's like an ally, and then her being the downfall of her own destruction, which is kind of a theme if you really think about, which I'll explain at the end of this with all the villains here. But her being her own demise when she's like trying to reach for the cup only to fall in through the cliffs. Everything about this movie worked for me here. Like, you got that bit of him being Indiana Jones in the university, similar to like the first movie, then wanting to go and rescue his father because he found out that his father's got kidnapped. So everything was just moving along so well and so nicely, and everything, like I said, just worked perfectly. When it comes to the first act, to the second act, to the third act, everything was just going along smoothly. And like I said, the dynamic between Indy and his father worked so well. You even got that little flashback at the beginning of the movie of a young Indiana Jones who was played by River Phoenix, I believe his name was. So you got like a little nice element of like a backstory there, and seeing how Indiana Jones became Indiana Jones, why he got the hat and all that kind of stuff. So that whole opening sequence was a really nice touch. So then everything again moving along, like you have even them when they were like tied up just like bickering and then ending up in like a secret lair for the Nazis, to then just escaping that. Like, it just worked so well. These two had such great chemistry, and everything just wrapped up so nicely at the end there. You even had like Indy wanting to go for like glory, wanting to get the cup when he was in the same situation as like the female villain, only for like his dad to like bring him out of it and saving his son. So it was just so nicely done, and a really great way to end the trilogy. So everything just worked for this movie for me. So yeah, when it comes to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, this one's going as an A+, my favorite movie of the whole franchise. Now, next up on the list here is we've got the sequel to Indiana Jones, or more of like a prequel, because I believe this took place before the events of the first movie. So when it comes to Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, the prequel, I had a really fun time with this movie. I won't lie. Like, I know the whole criticisms when it comes to Willie's character, and I'll get to that, but everything was just moving so quickly with this. Like, you went from them being in like this restaurant to end up being in a shootout, to then being in a car chase, to then being on a plane, for the plane to crash, and then them going into like a boat into the mountains, all happening within the first 20-25 minutes of the movie. So it was just all action packed, and then from there you get into them going to India. Now, we didn't get that whole Indy being a professor then going into like the adventure, but I really had a fun time with like how fast paced this movie was going. So from action scene to action scene. Now again, I know that for everybody in terms of the original trilogy, this one is like the lowest on the list. I guess this movie is a movie out of the original trilogy that ripped people's heart out.
I understood that reference.
Sorry, I had to. But everything was just moving so quickly. So you get the whole first 20 minutes action sequence. You get then them going to India, going to like trying to find the rocks, to then seeing people being burnt alive, rescuing the kids, the bridge sequence at the end. So everything was just non-stop action. Like, you didn't take a break, which I really, really liked. But there are criticisms when it comes to this movie. So again, with me, this is also like the weakest out of the whole three trilogy. Now, there's definitely some negatives with this movie, like for obvious reasons, the stereotypes when it comes to people in India, like the eyeball soup, the monkey brains, like all that kind of stuff just didn't really hold up well now, and also the Willie character. She basically was a damsel in distress. You've got the first movie with Marion to then her. It was sort of a really big downgrade. You kind of wonder why Indy is even interested in her. I didn't mind her too much, but you really kind of felt like, okay, like she's just whining a lot. She didn't really like help, especially in the third act too. She's about to be burnt alive to then get rescued, and Short Round was the one that did most of the work in helping Indy. Like, he's the one that went in to beat up the little kid, which I really thought was entertaining, how he just like hit the little kid, the prince or whatever he was, Maharaja. That was entertaining. He was more of a help. He was more of like the device that helped Indy versus Willie. Like, she just sort of like stood there complaining and whining. So yeah, like those two aspects sort of like brought the movie a little bit down, but overall it was still a fun movie. Like, I really loved the relationship between Indy and Short Round. Like, they were so fantastic, and he was so entertaining. He was a really great comedic relief. Just the arguments that they would ensue with one another there, it was just hilarious. And even when they were like in that room with like the spikes coming down and them just bickering and him just saying it's not my fault, it was just really entertaining. So I really wish he did appear in the Dial of Destiny. That really like crushed me that he didn't, but he was entertaining. And overall, like, you sort of get like a character arc with Indy as well, going for like fame and glory to then realizing that he has to save these kids, he has to put these rocks back. So it was a really nice like character development with him, but overall still a little bit weaker when it comes to the movie itself. So when it comes to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, now for this one I'm going for a still. It's an A minus, just because I really had a fun time with this, and it is one of the entertaining movies, especially with Short Round, but it's still going as like an A minus for me, the weaker of the trilogy so far. And then when it comes to the original one, obviously, I'll be completely honest, I have not seen this movie until very recently. I just, for some reason, I never had a chance to watch it. My dad never showed me this movie, and I just wish that he did, because this movie was so entertaining, and it really does hold up till today. Granted, maybe not the action scenes because of like the following movies that did ensue, but this one was such a brilliant way to kickstart this franchise. You have great actors, like you had Alfred Molina in there, which I thought was so weird and didn't even recognize him until my wife pointed it out. You had a great backstory with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg's creating this movie here, like the iconic boulder sequence in the beginning of the movie. The villain was pretty entertaining. The iconic scenes in the snake pit. You had a great way to like introduce the characters. Like I mentioned, like Indy is in the university with like these girls putting the love you on their eyelids. Then you get introduced to Marion, who's like out drinking somebody in the bar. The bar fight sequence as well was pretty memorable and entertaining. And then the whole like plot sequence, like everything was just so entertaining with it, like so unique and memorable. Like even for example when they had that big guard like with the sword, and then Indy just taking out the gun and shooting him, just like you could really remember these sequences, you can really embrace them in your mind, and it just came along so well. The plot and everything like that with the arc just made sense. Like I said, it's not supernatural, it's more grounded, religious grounded type. The villains, again, like you've got the Nazis and you've got like the villain version of Indy working together. There was that scene with the plane where Marion's inside the plane, and then you have like Indy fighting this person. It was like not over the top, like Indy's just getting the crap beaten out of him by this big guy, this big German guy, eventually like using his wits, outsmarting the guy. He's good in a fist fight, but like obviously when you've got big muscle guys just beating the crap out of him, it's grounded and it works well. Once like the third act comes too, it's not dragged out too much. Runtime is so perfect. Granted, a little bit of criticisms when it comes to the third act, when you've got like Indy and Marion just tied in a pole, so they're not really doing much. That's the only thing that I would have to say, is because like similar to Dial of Destiny where he's just tied up, he's not doing much, it's the same with the first movie. So he didn't really do much when it comes to like defeating the villains. It's kind of a running theme, I'll be completely honest. Like Indy, when it comes to the villain, they're sort of their own demise, basically. They're like the destruction of their own demise, if that makes sense. Like in the first movie, they get the artifact, they open it up, like these ghosts come out, their face gets melted off. Again, really brilliant. Like the way it looks, the visual effects look fantastic. So like their face just gets melted off. The second movie, he actually does defeat the villains. Like he is able to like take him out of the bridge, and like he falls to his own death. The third movie, again, the guy drinks the cup he chose poorly. He gets like de-aged, turns into bones, while the female tries to grab the cup and then falls to her own death. the fourth movie, like the lady takes too much knowledge and then just explodes and dies because of like her own like downfall. Fifth movie, Matt gets what he wants, gets the artifact, goes in like the time, reverts back to time only for like the plane to crash and he dies. So Indy does take a role into the movies, but the villains in themselves, they sort of are like their own destruction of their own downfall, basically, if that makes sense. But I digress. When it comes to the first movie, like, I wish he played more of a role rather than just standing there tied up, closing his eyes and letting all the villains' faces melt off. But this was just a brilliant way to like open the whole franchise. It really redefined everything here, and I was even talking to my wife, like the 80s has some really great movies when you think about it here. Like, you've got Indiana Jones, you've got the Star Wars movies, E.T., like Halloween, so many great movies in the 80s that honestly for me today still holds up. And with Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, it still holds up, it's still rewatchable, has so many iconic scenes, so many rewatchable scenes. So when it comes to Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, for me it's my second favorite movie here because of The Last Crusade. So yeah, when it comes to Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's going as an A, but it's going as like a in between Crusade and Temple of Doom, so my second favorite movie as a high A. So yeah, this is basically the list here. So you've got The Last Crusade as number 1, Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark as number 2, Temple of Doom as a number 3, and then you've got Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny as like a C category here. Like I said, just some really bad choices when it comes to like decisions in the last two movies, but a really great trilogy here. So this is my tier list for Indiana Jones movies. Let me know your thoughts about your ones in the comment section down below and what your thoughts are about this one here. Overall, the franchise is so entertaining and really fun to watch. Has some really great iconic scenes too, so I really had a fun time with this here. Shame it's over, shame that it's the end of the franchise, but to be honest, I won't be surprised in like 10-15 years they do a reboot or a remake or something with Indiana Jones, because that's how Hollywood is nowadays. But I had such a fun time with this franchise, it really was, and Harrison Ford was the perfect choice for Indiana Jones. So that about wraps it up for this tier list video here. Thank you so much for watching and thank you so much for listening. Keep an eye out on the channel. There's going to be the weekly entertainment news video coming out in the next couple of days. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, hit the like button so that you don't miss out on these videos. But thank you so much for watching again. Thank you so much for listening. This is YK Reviews. Peace.